Hey, good evening, everybody. I'd like to call to order the Town of Ayer Select Board meeting for Tuesday, November 15th, 2022. This meeting of the Ayer Select Board will be held in person at the location provided on this notice. Members of the public are welcome to attend this in-person meeting. Please note that while an option for remote attendance and/or participation via Zoom is being provided as a courtesy to the public, the meeting/hearing will not be suspended or terminated if technological problems interrupt the virtual broadcast, otherwise required by law. Members of the public with particular interest in a specific item on this agenda should make plans for in-person versus virtual attendance accordingly. This meeting will be live on Zoom and Channel 8. The public may access the proceedings by joining Zoom, meeting ID number 897-9080-0793, or by calling 929-205-6099. For additional information about remote participation, please contact Carly Antonellis, the Assistant Town Manager, at atm@ayer.ma.us or 978-772-8220, extension 100, prior to the meeting. Y'all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Any changes to the agenda as presented?
Don't have any. I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
I'll second that. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Agenda is approved as presented. I do have one announcement this evening. That is that the winter parking ban is in effect from November 15th, which is today, through April 15th. This annual parking ban prohibits parking any motor vehicle on any street or sidewalk in the town of Ayer between the hours of 12 midnight and 6 a.m. The winter parking ban also prohibits parking any motor vehicle or any street or sidewalk in the town of Ayer during a snowstorm. Our first item is public input. Is there anybody either in person or on Zoom for public input this evening? You'll have to tell me if that's.
Yeah. No one on Zoom.
Nobody. All right, not seeing anyone. That brings us to the next item. Alan? Good evening, Alan.
Yes, good evening, thank you.
Looks like first up is the expansion of the Disabilities Commission from 5 to 7 appointed members.
Yes,
All right, how are you tonight?
very, very well, thank you. Yes, the two items, the first is, requesting the expansion of the Ayer Disabilities Commission from its current composition of 5 members to 7. The commission was created, many years ago. I think when it was originally created, it was actually had 9 positions, but that was refined. And then the commission, was dormant for about 10 or 15 years. We've reestablished it the last couple of years. We have 3 great folks serving now, but we're ready to expand to 7. The self-evaluation and transition plan for the town, for ADA, is there's a lot of many years of work involved in it, and we feel very fortunate. We have 3 good folks now, but we've outreached, and 3 really impressive folks have responded as well, saying we would very much like to serve on the commission, and we really could use the board going to 7 members so we can really start accomplishing the goals that we need to as a town in terms of ADA compliance. So we think, going to the 7 will really give us the workforce, if you will, we need, to get the job done. And then the next item, we have 3 really fantastic folks who have submitted letters of expression of interest to serve.
I have no questions.
I have no questions either. Seems straightforward.
I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to expand the Ayer Disabilities Commission from the current 5 members to 7 appointed members.
Okay, I'll second it. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? It's unanimous.
Thank you very much. And then the second item is the submission of these letters of interest. And I don't know if Mr. Chair, if tonight is the night for you to vote on that or not. If it is, where they are prepared as well.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And are all three
Yes.
members here?
I don't believe any of them, but I've spoken with all of them.
Okay.
They had some conflicts for this evening. But again, the first one is Brenda Boso, who lives right on Fletcher Street. And again, great experience. She's run a daycare center for many, many years, working with children with disabilities. Her husband is disabled as well. And someone, again, who is really has the life experience, both with youth and children, which we have a lot of issues with, disability now, and dealing, again, with a spouse, with an immediate family member. Next one is Mindy Titus. Again, we met Mindy. We had a forum, a disabilities forum. She attended with her husband. And again, background in occupational therapy and healthcare. And her husband is living with a loss of sight. So again, a good immediate family member. Excellent candidate. And the third one is Russell Anderson, who came to Town Hall to speak with Carly one day. Carly asked me to come down. I met Russell. And again, a great guy who was a former police officer in Harvard. He ended up losing his leg in a motorcycle accident and, lives in a wheelchair with one leg. And Russell actually was saying, I want to get involved and see how I could contribute, because he's living it as he's going around the town on his wheelchair saying, we have some obstacles we need to deal with, folks with disabilities. So we have 3 folks that are really ready to serve and really get the work done.
Thanks.
The only question I have is, do we have the term limits for each of the 3?
So there is one unfilled term that's vacant right now. I'm just pulling that up. And then we would stagger. We do a 1-year term and a 2-year term for the new appointed.
Okay.
Yeah. So let me just grab that.
Is there any request on how to?
There is no
break that up?
preference in terms of that with these
Okay.
folks. They're ready to do as we're ready to formulate it.
Do we want to do the 1-year and the 2-year? And then I'll figure out the last one.
Okay, sure. Mr. Chair, I will make a motion to appoint Brenda Bousseau to the Disability Commission for a term of 2 years, and Mindy Titus to the Disability Commission for a term of 1 year.
Second that? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Approved. That was too fast.
Oh,
for you, wasn't it?
Yes.
I will make a motion to appoint Russell Anderson to the current vacant position on the Disability Commission.
I'll second that.
24, sorry.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Approved. Great. Thank you very
Mr.
much,
Chairman, thank you very
Thank you,
much.
Alan.
Thank you, Robert, Carly.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carly.
Alan, thank you.
It just dawned on me that when they're making new spots, we need to know the terms.
All right. That brings us to our next agenda item, which is a public hearing on the fiscal year 23 tax classification.
So, Mr. Chair, real quick, because it's 6:09,
Yes, we
we
need to
can't start until 6:15.
Okay.
So
We'll
maybe we
move
could
on
do
to-
minutes or Robert's report or something. Or Dan, whatever.
Maybe the minutes.
We'll do the minutes first. So we'll move down to approval of the meeting minutes from November 1st, 2022. I had no changes.
I didn't have any either. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of November 1st, 2022 as presented.
Second that. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. Minutes are approved. Sorry, they only bought us 1 minute.
We still got 5 to go.
Mr. Chair, I can give a brief update on the, we had
Yes.
executive by board meeting today, just to fill in with some
Perfect
banter.
filler.
So the executive by board has been reviewing the current town policy, financial policies that was last looked at about 2 years ago. And we had our final walkthrough today with potential changes. We do have a couple of open items that we'll look at for the December 13th meeting, just some questions on changing some of the amounts, particularly around capital, looking for Department of Revenue recommendations as we look. Currently it sits at $350,000 where it requires a debt exclusion, which is passage at town meeting, but also passage at the ballot box. So we're looking to make sure that we're at a good number. So one, it's kind of on par with what our budget is for what we can absorb without needing a debt exclusion, and hopefully kind of free up some of the paperwork and red tape that can go through with some of these projects.
Do you know how long has it been at the 350?
2 years. We just increased it 2 years ago. Originally it was 300,000 on the first iteration of the budget. The financial policies. I do want to note that the Finance Committee is still getting up to speed. They were not at today's meeting, but we are looking for their feedback, hopefully at the December 13th meeting.
Mr. Chair, just to add on what Selectman Hood said, I think in terms of next steps, obviously we do want the Finance Committee to review and weigh in on the proposed changes. And also we, as we did last time 2 years ago, we will send the proposed document to all town departments and so forth for your review and input as well.
Thank you.
Welcome. The other item of interest, since we still have a couple minutes, so capital planning will begin this week. We have our meeting scheduled for Thursday. We have the submissions from the departments, and the first meeting is generally an overview. We just go through the submissions and look to see what people have questions on from the committee, and we'll go back to the departments and we'll do follow-up meetings around that to get more information.
Great. Thank you.
And that's all I have.
Okay.
2 minutes.
Okay.
Is the event Saturday, December 3rd?
Yes,
What time?
5:15. Do you want to announce that?
Mr. Chair, in the last minute, I mean, just to add to the announcements, as we're waiting for 6:15, I just want folks to mark their calendar for Saturday, December 3rd at 5:15 p.m. will be the kickoff of the annual holiday candlelight stroll, meeting down at the parking facility coming down to Town Hall. So that'll be Saturday, December 3rd at 5:15.
Will there be an ice sculpture this year?
There will be an ice sculpture that I'm told, I believe Alan stepped up. The ice sculpture is actually going to be done at the event.
Oh,
So,
very
you know,
cool.
the weather has not been so helpful the last few ice sculptures, but it'll be sort of a live demonstration, but there will be.
Or it will be done that morning and ready for the night.
Right.
So there's no chainsaws?
Yeah.
We've discouraged chainsaw use during a live event.
All right.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah.
No
Okay.
fun.
Thank you.
Are they good?
Yeah.
Like 10 more
10
seconds.
seconds.
Do we have the Jeopardy theme music?
Yeah.
Yeah, I got it queued up for you. All right, we're good.
You can go.
Town of Ayer notice of public hearing, Ayer Select Board FY23 tax classification hearing. The Ayer Select Board will conduct a public hearing on Tuesday, November 15th, 2022 at 6:15 p.m., both in person, Ayer Town Hall, 1 Main Street, Ayer, Massachusetts, and via remote participation for the town's FY 2023 tax classification. At the public hearing, the Ayer Board of Assessors shall provide all information and data relevant to making a decision on allocating the tax burden, including the fiscal effect on the available alternatives. For call and information prior to the hearing, please contact ATM at air.ma.us or 978-772-8220 extension 100. Date of the public hearing, Tuesday, November 15th, 2022. Time of the public hearing, 6:15 p.m. Location, in person, Ayer Town Hall, 1 Main Street, Ayer, Massachusetts. Remote participation held on Zoom. Meeting materials and information can be obtained by contacting Carly Antonellis, Assistant Town Manager at ATM at air.ma.us or 978-772-8220 extension 100.
Mr. Chairman, it gives me great pleasure to introduce Ms. Linda McQuaid, the Assessing Administrator, who has a brief presentation for the board. She's joined by Ms. Ruth Maxon Schultz from the Board of Assessors, Ms. Barbara Tierney, the Treasurer Tax Collector, and Ms. Jacqueline Guthrie from the Assessing Office as well. So Ms. McQuaid has a brief presentation
Hi.
for the board.
Good evening.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good, thank you.
Tonight is the FY 2023 tax classification hearing, and the purpose of our tax classification hearing this evening is to adopt a residential factor. And I will be asking the Select Board to vote to determine a residential factor, which will determine the percentage share of the tax burden to be allocated to each class of property. And we have 5 classes of property: residential, open space, commercial, industrial, and personal property.
There you go.
This next slide has some commonly used terms which will be discussed during the presentation, and I just provided it for reference. The role of the assessors and who determines the tax rate. The role of the Board of Assessors is to value property for the purpose of equitable taxation based on fair market value by what sales have taken place for the prior calendar.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. For the prior calendar year. FY 2023 was a review of the 2021 sales, and 2020 sales were utilized for classes that had limited sales. And this review was in accordance with all of the guidelines established by the Massachusetts Department of Revenue. The Board of Assessors does not set the tax rate. The tax rate is determined each year as a result of the money the town and the residents decide to spend at town meeting. And residents who attend the annual town meeting decide what services the town of Ayer provides. These decisions may impact the tax rates. As a result, the residents of the town of Ayer play a role in setting the tax rates. And the tax rate formula, which is on the left-hand side, is the tax levy, which is the amount of money needed to run the town, divided by the real and personal property total value. And that is the proposed tax rate that will be determined tonight. The Select Board can also decide to vote on 3 options: discounts and exemptions. This first one is open space. This is not applicable for the town of Ayer because we don't have any open space currently. And the second one is the residential exemption, and this can be applied to every residential property which is the principal residence of a taxpayer. This has not been voted in the past in Ayer, and isn't really suitable for the town because it's more for vacation type properties such as Cape Cod. And then the next one is the small commercial exemption, and this is designed to provide tax relief for small businesses. Typically, it's for qualifying properties that must have a valuation of less than $1 million and an average employment of 10 or fewer employees. The Select Board may adopt this exemption up to 10% of the value for eligible properties. And this commercial exemption was actually studied in the past and was deemed not appropriate for the town of Ayer. Those are just on the previous slide, the pros and cons, just for reference. Okay. This next chart is the FY 2023 valuation percentages. And for 2023, 71% of the value for the town was in the residential value. 29% was for commercial, industrial, and personal property. And this is the historic tax levy percentages. And this is actually more the split or the shift of how the taxes were kind of divided. And as you can see, it's been kind of consistent over the past 4 years. For 2022, 51% was for the residential, actually picked up 51% of the tax levy, and 49% was for the commercial, industrial, and personal property. The FY 2023 valuation summary, it's actually, this chart indicates the classes, and the total valuation for 2023 was $1,600,217,500. From FY 2022, you can see that there was a 9.5% increase, and the average single-family value for FY 2023 was $447,100. From FY 2022, there was an 11.8% increase. The median commercial industrial value, I use the median as the measurement instead of an average because it's more reflective of the commercial market, because it's just a wide range of values for the commercial and industrial. And that was determined at $328,600, and there was a 5.7% increase from FY 2022. The FY 2023 tax levy summary. FY 2022 levy limit was $27,927,845. If we add the 2.5% to that, that's $698,196. Our FY 2023 growth was $599,688, and the debt exclusions was $1,242,923, giving us a total maximum tax levy of $30,468,652. Our actual tax levy that the town needs is $16,332. So we have an excess levy capacity of $3,452,319. So we're actually a lot, $3 million lower than what we need, or what the maximum is. And as far as a summary, comparing the FY 2023 to FY 2022 actual tax levy, there was a $677,891 increase at 2.5%. And if we were to determine a single rate tax for FY 2023, we would take the tax levy, the $27,016,332, divide that by our total valuation, multiply that by 1,000, and that would give us our single tax rate of $16.88. Compared to last year's single tax rate of $18.02, there's been a decline of 6.3%, and this is attributed to the increase in market value. And this is a chart just referencing the range from no shift with a single tax rate to a maximum residential split of 0.68 and a CIP shift of 1.75. Last year's shift was 1.57, which is in yellow. And I wanted to mention that this chart is based on a average single-family home of $447,100 with a median commercial industrial value of $328,600. As you look at the chart, you'll see that in the past with the previous chart, the levy has been kind of consistent, almost equal, with residential just a percent or two higher. So to be consistent as to what's done in the past, we would want to either go with I would recommend a 1.62 CIP shift and a residential factor of 0.741,700, or 1.63 CIP shift with a residential factor of 0.737,500. In comparison to last year's classification data, our tax rate was $13.42 per thousand, and the commercial, industrial, personal property was $28.28 per thousand. And just kind of summarizes, as I mentioned prior, the single tax rate was $18.02 last year, with a CIP shift of 1.57 and a residential factor of 0.744810. And just a tax rate history for the past 4 years prior. Again, 2023 is just an estimated proposed split tax rate of $12.45 for the residential tax rate and the commercial, industrial, personal property tax rate of $27.52 per thousand. And I'd like to thank you very much for your time and answer any questions if there are any, and allow the select board to vote in.
Great, thank you. Scott?
Thank you. So one question I have, I just want to make sure it's understood. So the increase in the market value of primarily the residential properties is what's leading to the decline of the tax rate. On the debt exclusion front, there are debt exclusions that are dropping off the rolls for this coming year, is that correct?
Exactly.
Yes. Yes.
It's decreasing every year, but it's not going to fully drop off this year. I believe we've got maybe 2 years. It's only about 300,000 being debt service amount.
That's all I have for now. Do you have any questions?
I don't, no. Thank you.
So I would just see if there's any public questions. If you want to stay.
Stay, I'll stay.
Yeah.
You open up for questions first.
Any questions, either from anybody online or in person?
Doesn't appear to be. Yeah.
Okay.
So, Mr. Chair, I'll excuse me, make the motion for the open space residential exemption and the small commercial exemption first, proposed at the tax rate. I will make a motion that the Ayer Select Board do not implement the open space discount for fiscal year 2022.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye. I will make a motion that the Ayer Select Board do not implement the residential exemption for fiscal year 2023.
Okay, second, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye. I will make a motion that the Ayer Select Board do not implement the small commercial exemption for fiscal year 2023.
I'll second that, all those in favor?
Aye. Sorry. So looking at what's proposed, looking at the impact on each of the average and then the medium commercial, I would be inclined to look at a 1.63 split.
Agreed.
I'll make a motion that the Ayer Select Board adopt a 1.63 CIP shift factor for the fiscal year 2023 tax.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great.
All right,
Thank
thank
you.
you very much.
Close the hearing.
Yep.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing for the FY23 tax classification.
Seconded, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And public hearing is closed.
We're good to go, time-wise.
Yes, 6:30.
Excellent.
Excellent job.
Town of Ayer notice of public hearing, Ayer Select Board, calendar year 2023 solid waste transfer station rates. The Ayer Select Board will be conducting a remote and in-person public hearing on Tuesday, November 15th, 2022 at 6:30 p.m. The Select Board, in their legal capacity as the rate-setting authority for the Solid Waste Enterprise Fund or Transfer Station, will hear the report and recommendations of the town's rate review committee, take public comments, consider approval and adoption of the calendar year 2023 solid waste transfer station rates. For Zoom/call-in information, please contact Assistant Town Manager Carly Antonellis at 978-772-8220 extension 100 or ATM at air.ma period US. Date of public hearing, Tuesday, November 15th, 2022. Time of public hearing, 6:30 p.m. Location of public hearing, in person at Ayer Town Hall, 1 Main Street, Ayer, Massachusetts. Remote participation, meeting held on Zoom. Meeting materials, information can be obtained by contacting Carly Antonellis, Assistant Town Manager at ATM at Ayer, period MA, period US, or 978-772-8220, extension 100. Good evening, Dan.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Dan. How are you?
Fine, how are you?
Good.
Ready?
Yep. There you go.
All right. Ready to go?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thank you. And yeah, so I'm here on behalf of the Rate Review Committee to discuss the transfer station rate recommendations that have been brought forth by the committee. So I have a brief presentation, and I'll start out kind of with an overview. The solid waste disposal and transfer station operation is an enterprise fund, and it has a separate accounting. Fees and rates are charged for the solid waste services to fund the enterprise fund. Revenue is primarily based on annual permit sales, so our permit stickers and our pay-as-you-throw bags. So permits, stickers, and bags are the majority of where the revenue comes from. And approximately 40% of the solid waste enterprise budget is subsidized by the general fund, so through the tax base. The transfer station, the operation up there, we have municipal solid waste, trash disposal, recycling. It's a zero-sort facility, so all recycling goes in one bin except for the cardboard. Food waste collection, we take bulk items for fees. Yard waste, swap shed, which is very popular, and there are book, textile, and metal recycling up there. These are the current fees. I listed them for reference here, and I'll get into recommendations of those later. You want to go to the next one, Carly?
Mm-hmm.
These are the current bulk item fees as well, and I'll get into some changes proposed for those later too. So the FY23, the solid waste budget breakdown, it's kind of hard to see here, but the largest piece of the pie here is the disposal and recycling, and I looked back, actually, if you go back to about FY17, it was a smaller piece of the pie, maybe 24%, but just over the last several years, the cost of waste disposal and recycling has gone up. We have seen recycling start to come back down, but that is the largest piece of the pie. And if you want to carry on, Carly. So the revenue needed through the rates. So to determine that, we take the total budget needed to operate the transfer station transfer station, $570,540. We apply the general fund subsidy, which has generally been a practice of $160,000 each year, and that gets voted at town meeting. Retained earnings, 0, and then there are other revenue sources. We have a solar lease. The recycling committee does bring in a small amount of revenue, and also we do receive some recycling revenue when we scrap metals and things like that. So the total revenue needed is $378,512 based on our estimates. So if you want to carry down. Some notable budget considerations for the transfer station. So the contracts for solid waste disposal and for recycling collection, they've increased due to increased hauling and disposal costs. The contracts for those expired June 30th of 2023. So, we'll see what the climate is like at that time, and hopefully we get a good contracts. The recycling commodities market, as I mentioned, it is more favorable than recent years, and we're actually paying less to remove the recycling. So we are seeing a little bit of a relief there on our recycling budget line item. There are general costs due to inflation everywhere. Inflation is not just impacting the transfer station. And we have, I'll get into this actually later tonight, discontinuance of mattress acceptance and changes to bulk item fees. In the transfer station user trends, they're generally decreasing, and this is something we're trying to work on. So if you want to go to the next slide. It's just a graphic kind of just showing since 2016, if you look at the blue line, it's a general trend downward in the total number of transfer station permits. Next slide. So to develop the bags and the sticker fees, we use a rate model. And we run different scenarios through it to see what combination of sticker and bag fees work best to reach the revenue needed. So if you want to go to the next slide. So in the rate model, we evaluated 12 different rate scenarios for bag and permit increases. So there was no rate scenario that could generate the $378,000 required. But in past practices, we have, the town has supplemented revenue using retained earnings. So in this case, the rate review committee recommends supplementing $35,000 from retained earnings, resulting in a new sales revenue required of about $343,000. The current fees where they are now would generate about $344,000, so it's barely enough to meet the required sales revenue. So the rate review committee also recommends increasing the regular permit by $5, and that will generate, is anticipated to generate $348,000 in revenue. So sales revenue required $343, increase the regular permit $5 to have a revenue generated of $348 to have a little bit of a cushion. And also we evaluated changes to bulk item fees, and I will get into that on the next slide. So here's the recommendation. So all the fees stay the same except for the annual regular permit, we call it, which would be a $5 increase from $100 to $105. And then recommended changes to the bulk items. So we did a close look at these because it hasn't been looked at over at least the 9 years I've been here. It's been longer than that. I couldn't find it exactly. I looked back a bit and couldn't find it.
Since I've lived in town, and
Yeah,
I've
it's
been
probably
here for
been
over
Yeah.
20 years.
20 years.
Yeah. So I looked at, or the rate review committee looked at neighboring communities, and I also took a dive into how much we are paying for disposal and what we, should be charging for these items to enable to be making some revenue. And these were the recommendations. So there's quite a few bump ups here. The only one really staying the same are stoves and automobile batteries, but the rest are. We keep it kind of at an increment of 5 as well, so we can our bulk stickers are $5 stickers. So those are also recommended by the rate review committee for changes. And so this slide just kind of shows a cost to the residents and impacts by the increase in the sticker sales. So right now, a regular permit is $100, and so you say about maybe 70 medium bags a household would use. You'd have a fee of $450 for the year to be doing trash and recycling disposal. And senior rate similarly, $160 based on a much smaller bag usage. The proposed cost would change that. It'd be $5, $455 for a regular instead of $450, and the senior rate would stay the same. So just kind of a note too, I did look at a private hauler, and they're about $720 per year, so it's significantly lower than a private hauler, and I myself use a transfer station for that reason. But go ahead, Carly. And these are just some of the recent increases in fees that have been approved or voted on and authorized. The most recent being October 2021, the regular sticker was increased $5, and then prior to that, bags went up $1 each in March of 21. So those are the recommendations from the rate review committee, and if there's any discussion or questions, we can have it.
Thank you, Dan.
Yeah.
So, just a couple of things. As a customer, as well as a member of the select board, it's welcome to see the increase in the bulk items, because I do believe that is long overdue. Some of my, I guess, concerns over, the need to subsidize. So, subsidizing, I think, when you look at a lot of other communities, I think that there's always a piece, because most transfer stations are not 100%, and I wouldn't expect ours, because we do have, like, I see the fire department down there throwing their trash, and I'm assuming that there are other departments that do that. So that's things that are just kind of being absorbed in the, I guess, that subsidy. But when it comes to like bag enforcement, I've been to the transfer station on multiple occasions. I've thrown my blue bag in, and I've seen piles of black bags in the transfer in the house, and I don't know if that's being enforced after the fact. Same thing with stickers. Like I buy my sticker. I used to get the second sticker, but didn't see the need for it this past year. But I've been at the transfer station where I've seen people without stickers at the transfer station. And then the other question, which is more of just the last piece is just a question. I know years ago we had a conversation about whether to allow commercial plates at the transfer station. I believe initially or originally we weren't. And I've noticed a few up there. And I'm not I don't really care as long as there's a sticker on it. But I'm just wondering if we get some clarification on that going forward.
Yeah, so I did recently learning of some black bags being thrown in and also stickers. So I'm addressing the situation. I've done some work on that, and I'll continue to tackle that issue. And yeah, the commercial plates, let me look at that. I know sometimes there are residents who need a larger vehicle or something, but
Yeah, I understand.
things like that when they end up not having a sticker, but let me look
Okay.
into that one too.
Just more for
Yeah.
clarification on that.
Yeah. Okay.
And the last question, has it been explored as a way for people to actually buy like bulk stickers at the site, or even trash bags at the site?
I have not. I'm sure it has in the past, but I'd have to look at, at what we'd have to do for that. There may be some options.
Because again, as a customer, sometimes getting the stickers is difficult. Like, I work from home now a few days a week, so I'm able to stop by and get them on my lunch break now.
Yeah.
But when I was in the office full time, it was difficult to actually get stickers.
So a transfer station sticker or kind of everything like
Actually,
bags
kind of
and-
both.
Yeah.
So my parents live in Maine. They have a transfer station, and they have
Yeah.
a staff there, and you can write a check for a bulk item, like a mattress or a
Right.
couch or
I know
whatever.
Groton does it
And
too.
they have that capability where if you don't have it, you at least know you can go and bring in, whether it's paying by check, maybe getting a square or something, something where it's more, because I think that might actually lend to a little better collections, particularly on the bulk side of things.
Yeah. We can look at that. I know when COVID occurred, we did have sticker purchasing or selling up
That
at the
was good,
station.
by the way.
So, it kind of would help drive that.
I wonder if
That's
it's
a good
even
idea.
worth looking into if we could do it as an online thing, and then it's something you could just print out and attach to the bag. It doesn't have to be a sticker, per se, but so that way you only have two people up there sometimes only one, right? Like
Mhm.
working. So if it's a way to process that payment online, just print out a piece of paper
Mhm.
that says you purchased for a washer or
Yeah.
TV or whatever.
There may be some operational things we could do.
So I guess going, refocusing back just on the rates themselves, I think the rates are fine. Happy to implement these.
Yes.
Okay. Do you have any other questions?
No.
Do you want to open up for any questions or
Yes.
comments?
Yep. Anybody online or here have any questions or comments before we?
Go ahead, just ask.
Huh?
She can go ahead and speak.
Okay, Pauline,
Good evening, Pauline's
Good evening.
iPad chiming in.
how are
Um,
you?
I have attended the rate review committee meeting, so let me start there. So I have the prior discussions. I don't begrudge either Scott or Sean. I'm sorry Janice is not here because she is a champion of what I'm going to share with you. So let me ask the first question. Is there a need to make a decision tonight? Because this is a public hearing. Oftentimes they can be continued for additional discussion and deliberation. So is this something that needs to be decided tonight?
We need to start selling stickers.
Yeah, I mean, that's the only,
That
there's,
would be
you don't
primary.
need to decide if there's a contention and we want to hold off, but yeah, just getting, we've had a lot of people in wanting to buy the stickers, but that's the only real push, otherwise it
Okay.
doesn't, right?
Well, I trust I won't have anything contentious. Actually, I have some information to share, but I also have some questions. Typically, in the past, the subsidy was determined by what the expenses ended up being at the time the town meeting warrant was prepared. So, and Dan, I commend you for trying very, very hard to make the subsidy only $160,000, but historically, it has been well above that, as I mentioned at a rate review committee. Mr. Aponte asked a question. Did a little research today. The average over the last 5 years for the solid waste transfer subsidy has been $206,000. The only time it was 160 was 2021, 2016, 244, 2017, 241, 2018, 233, and so on. It has been decreasing, and that's a wonderful thing, but the fact that we try to make it 160 for this year so we can, limit the impact to the users is great. But as I said at one of the rate review committees, and you did use the numbers, I suggested a compromise of 180 between the average 200 and the 160 you were proposing. Because in my view, and I believe Ms. Livingston agreed with this, or at least she shared the thoughts of her own, it will help reduce the cost of the bags, which is the single biggest deterrent from residents using the transfer station. And if we can reduce the cost of the bags by increasing the subsidy, in my view, and I believe Ms. Livingston's as well, that's a good thing. Keep in mind, we've put $2+ million into stabilization the last several years. We can certainly afford to put a little more into subsidizing the transfer station to reduce the overall cost to the people who use it. And in my mind, that's doing a good thing for the residents and will increase the use, because it's the bags that deter people. And we've discussed, or not we, you all discussed at the rate review committee, going back to stickers. Show of hands, who remembers buying stickers to put on their own bags? Me? I think Scott, you were here then.
Yep.
And they were $1, then they went to $2. And people could buy huge trash bags anywhere for a whole lot less than $3, $4 a bag. And that, I think, and the bags that you sell, as Dan mentioned and agrees, just deteriorate. You put too much in them, they split, and you've lost a bag. So that would be, from my perspective, the biggest deterrent to using the transfer station. So I said I had a couple questions, and I just want to run through those really quickly. You may not have answers, and if you don't, I apologize. What is the current? Oh, I think one of the pages I have here fell on the floor. What is the current revenue for the bags? I think it was roughly $240,000. I remember from one of the rate review meetings. And I know it's hard to decide that because we use 3 different sizes, right? What if we just sold one size? It's a different question I just thought of.
Yeah, give me a minute.
That's all right, I'm sorry to put you on the spot with that. I have it on one of the memorandum that was passed out, I think it's 238,000 or something like that from bag stickers alone, or bags alone, I'm sorry. I could have that wrong.
Yes, 238,000 from bags.
All right. And then, yep, there it is. It's on page 5 of your October 27 memo. And 106 from permit stickers.
Yes.
So if we were to, and our permit stickers, it's hard to use stickers as a word when it means so many different things, are significantly less than our surrounding towns. Ours are currently 100, Harvard is 130, Littleton is 140, Groton is 80. Their bag prices are significantly less than ours. But what if we didn't go to 105 but 110 and added a little bit more money, and I think it would generate another $4,000, almost $8,000 total for the permit stickers. I'm just doing math in my head here, so I apologize if I'm wrong, but just get the bag prices down a little. And this is where Scott and Sean come in, because you all have the authority to do that. And if the subsidy goes up to 175, sorry, but so what? It's still going to be less than it has been over the average for the last 7, 8, 10 years. It's important to decrease the bag prices if you want to draw more people to the transfer station. And that is what Ms. Livingston has been saying for a year and a half. So I guess because she's not here, I'm advocating on her behalf. I hope she doesn't mind.
Pauline, this is Scott. I kind of disagree with what the deterrent is. I think the deterrent is really two things. One is I think there's a lot of younger people moving to town who never grew up with a transfer station. Like I grew up where my grandparents lived in Maine, and I remember the transfer station trips when they were, my parents live in that same town now, they have a transfer station. So I was never had an aversion to going to a transfer station. I think a lot of the newer people who are moving to town kind of look at transporting their trash and they're put off by it. The other part I think is also marketing of the transfer station, as we have had a lot of build out. And we talked about this on the finance committee probably 7 to 10 years ago, to try to get the real estate agent, like some kind of pamphlet that we could give to the real estate agents so that people would know what services they had. Overall, with the bag prices versus like the sticker prices, I don't see a huge correlation of those as being a huge deterrent, because I think when you look at our recycling capabilities at the transfer station, I think the sticker is a huge bargain for that price. And then I think also the bag cost is a good drive to try to recycle more as much as we can, whether it's through, you know, the textiles, plastic, metal, etc.
But I can't disagree with you on the first things that you said regarding the use of the transfer station. I'm old enough to have remembered going to the dump with my father on Route 2 in Concord as a child, and it is now a covered facility much like the one here in Ayer. And I said that at the rate review committee meeting. I think it's a generational thing. Harvard has great usage of its transfer station. It's open, I think, 5 days a week. And it costs considerably more, but people go, but it's an older population. You are right. The newer, younger residents of Ayer, trash is dirty. We don't want to have to throw our trash away. But it's, I'm sorry to be this blunt, it's their trash, not ours. They're not throwing away my trash, they're throwing away their own trash. So I think it's an educational thing. How'd that pamphlet go?
It crashed and burned.
Okay, so, you know, we talk about doing these things, but we don't do them, and I'm not being critical, I'm just stating a fact. The fact is, the subsidy of the transfer station has been a lot more than $160,000 for the last 7, 8 years that I looked at it. And to give credit to those who use it, like you and me, and Janice, to her credit as well, why not let us pay less and I'm gonna bring in a prior discussion on a different topic in a minute, but why should we subsidize everybody else? If people wanna pay $700 to $1,000 a year to have someone else pick up their trash, so be it. But we support the town by using the transfer station. Let us pay a little bit less, or go back to bag stickers instead of bags. And perhaps we will generate more interest, because when the use of the transfer station began to drop when the bags were brought in, the pay-as-you-throw bags. And
My guess
that's
would
when-
be it's better enforcement with the bags versus the stickers, because the bags stick out more.
I agree with you there too, but again, if we're not gonna have bags that are usable, what's the point of paying for them?
Yeah.
So the last comment I just want to make about the comparison. Remember when we wanted to have the stormwater drainage on non-permeable surfaces assessed to each household as their non-permeable surfaces existed? That crashed and burned at town meeting, as you recall. And I see that very similar to this. We go, and Mr. Aponte, if I'm not mistaken, and Robert, I'm sorry to put you on the spot, I think this was his comment at one of the rate review committees. I could not hear what he was saying very well, but somebody at the rate review committee suggested going back to a full general subsidy of the transfer station. And you know what? I think that might be a good idea in the overall scheme of things. If it's not breaking money this way in an enterprise fund, do away with the enterprise fund and go back to the way we used to do it. Just food for thought. That way everybody shares the cost of the transfer station rather than closing it entirely, because it serves a good purpose. So those are my thoughts. And I really would appreciate it if you would give some thought to re-looking at these numbers before you make a final decision.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess I'll try to answer a few things. So the 160,000, I would have to look back to confirm, but in the rate model, most of the years I looked at were around that range. I know at town meeting last year, the subsidy was 197,000 that's approved by the town meeting, but we try not to subsidize all the way up to that level, so we have some cushion in the budget in case there's a reserve fund transfer needed, or et cetera. So the rate review committee did look at shifting costs and lowering bag prices. And we also took a look at neighboring communities, one of which was Harvard, they're only open 10 hours a week actually. But the revenue needed it's going to be the same, but we can shift the costs, from bags to stickers to try to lower the cost of the bag. So we looked at that, and in order to drop the bag price to, right now it's a 4, 5, 6 for small, medium, large, to a 3, 4, 5, you'd have to increase the subsidy to 180,000. And the committee at the time decided now was not the right time to do that, and wanted to move forward with the recommendations set forth tonight. And the committee did also, and as part of my presentation, was for the next review cycle, we're going to look at expenses and operations and try to, as well as find a way to see if we can increase the number of users and look at these neighboring towns more closely, like Harvard, for example, which was in my memo with the rate review committee, which does have a high percentage of users, and try to understand from those communities how they're making their operations run. So that, I think that's all I got.
So if I could just respond to Dan's comment, yes, Harvard is only open 10 hours a week. Littleton, who charges $140 for its permit sticker and additional fees for bags on an individual basis, a little bit lower than us. They're open almost 40 hours a week. Groton, which is the next adjoining town, only charges $80 for its permit sticker, also charges for 3 different types of bags. They're open 36 hours a week. So just increasing our access sticker, our permit sticker, to $10 is still going to be lower than 2 of the 3 contiguous towns, and it will generate a little bit more income. And I believe I recommended using a $180,000 subsidy after the first rate review committee on November 1st. And while you're right, Dan, the 160 was the one that the rate review committee looked at, I didn't get a sense there was a whole lot of discussion on that, but that's just my opinion. Currently, the Ayer transfer station is open 28 hours with its extended hours on Wednesday. So I don't know what the cost factor was to add the lights and the overtime or whatever is paid to which of the two employees work there for until 7 o'clock. But are we doing a cost benefit analysis of that extended hours to see if it's really worth having it open? How many people go there between 3 and 7 p.m. in this weather? Is it 7 o'clock yet? Nope. It's going to close in a minute. So, you know, how many people have been there today? Do we know, or do we even check that to see? If it's even
We are
having-
tracking, we are collecting data on the number of users in these excess hours to see if it is a thing that we want to keep doing moving forward. So it is being looked at, yeah.
Well, thank you for that. You know, I think you do a great job, Dan, and I'm not criticizing, I'm just stating my views.
Okay,
All right,
thanks.
thank you all.
Yeah.
Please
Thank
consider not making a decision tonight.
Any?
So I guess it's a lot to unpack, but, you know, with what we've been presented, the way I view the transfer station is our biggest cost is our haulage, and which is our variable cost, and our variable cost is driven or covered by the bags. So I think keeping the bags at the level that they're at is still the right move, because it does, I believe, push more recycling by the users, so therefore it's kind of shifting what we're hauling out. The changes in the bulk stickers and also the change that with the textiles and the mattresses, I think we're in a transitional year for the transfer station where, you know, we have some changes to the larger items. I mean, looking at the changes in the bulk, it could be a significant change over last year, because, you know, I'm not sure if we track specifically how much we're losing on every bulk item that we've hauled out of there. I'm assuming we're probably not getting to that granular level of detail.
Yeah, it's really kind of, it was tough because of the way a lot of it gets shipped out sorted together. It's hard to pinpoint each one. So I anticipated we'd probably make, you know, around $3,000 more in revenue from it. But like it is another highly variable, like how much, you know, how many TVs we're gonna get this year versus a year before.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it was very brief. It wasn't very detailed. Yeah.
So I do think that perhaps this operating year is a good opportunity to really look at, I guess, the operations, you know, like some of the things I brought up as concerns, you know, as a customer, but also as a member of the select board, would be, you know, and I think it came up at town meeting a couple of years ago about people like redesigning it so people can have access to the free shed, whether to give or take. I know the free shed's a whole different conversation, because that does generate probably a good bulk of our trash. And I thought it was interesting because Pauline mentioned that 2021 was the lowest year of the subsidy, and that was the year that the free shed was closed due to COVID for, I think, majority of the year.
Yeah,
So-
that's interesting.
Yeah, so that's my observation on that. And I do think the free shed does serve a good purpose. I don't want to totally knock it, but I also think it gets used in a manner which is just to kind of dump things without a bulk sticker. So that, I'll get off my soapbox.
I have no comments.
All right. Mr. Chair, I will make a motion to approve the rates recommended for the calendar year 2023 solid waste transfer station.
Oh, second that? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And the rates are approved.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second that? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are at a public hearing. Dan, one
Yeah.
more.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, DPW item, which this has come up in discussion a little. We did send a public notification out on it on the web, and it's posted at the transfer station. But mattresses and textiles were added to the waste ban by Mass DEP. So what that means is that mattresses and textiles and box springs can no longer go into the trash. So I did put together just a real quick PowerPoint. Do you have that?
I don't.
Oh.
I'm so sorry.
No, I got it. Can I plug it in?
Yep. Is it,
USB drive.
oh, E-Drive, okay.
And then SB meeting, 11:15. The bottom one. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Here we go. You gotta put that in the packet. I can do that. Anyways, so the Mass DEP waste ban for mattresses, textiles, also box springs are included. So as of November 1st, these items can no longer be taken as trash. They have to go into recycling. And the next question is why? We'll go to the next slide. So Mass DEP has a solid waste master plan for 2030, and the goal to reduce the trash disposal statewide by 30%. So from 5.7 million tons of trash in 2018 to 4 million tons in 2030. The Commonwealth has diminishing capacity at its landfills and combustion facilities, and the impact of removing mattresses and textiles, the state expects greater than 200,000 tons per year to be removed from the waste stream and recycled. So how does this impact the transfer station? We were accepting mattresses and box springs, and they would go in the trash, and we can no longer accept them at this time. We are looking into some options. I'll get into that later. And textiles can be accepted. We have donation containers at the transfer station for those. There's Bay State Textiles accepts clothes, shoes, and linens, and then there's a few bins that are just clothes and shoes. So some kind of a more fine definition of what DEP considers textiles. So it's clothing, footwear, bedding, towels, curtains, fabric, and similar products, except for textiles that are contaminated with mold, bodily fluid, insects, oil, or hazardous substances. So anything that's contaminated would go into the trash. It would not go into recycling as a textile. So then the bottom bullet I have here, so textiles, they're not recycled the same way as our typical cans, bottles, and paper. They have to be separated and handled. And they do get used for resale as rags and things like that. So that's just a note on how they are recycled. It's not your usual, the way you think about it. Next. So mattresses, box springs. How can a resident recycle a mattress or box spring? So first thing to do is if you're buying a new mattress, ask the retailer if they'll take the old one. If the retailer won't provide that service, there are vendors out here, and this is available on the town website as well, and on the posted notices at the transfer station. There's several vendors right now that are recycling mattresses, and so they're listed here. I'll go to the next. So for the future, what may be coming down the pipeline, DPW is currently looking at its operations and whether we could add this as a service, recycling mattresses and box springs. And then there are potential to have one-day events. I've spoken to some of those vendors on the previous page, and they do have those services as well. So they'll come out here with a truck for one day and have an event of mattress and box spring recycling. So that may be something we can do in the future. And so some helpful information on it, the Airtown webpage, Recyclopedia, it can help you determine if you can recycle something. And Mass DEP has its waste ban website. So I just wanted to give an informational on that for sure.
In terms of for textiles, what is enforcement, or is it just at the time educational?
Yes.
Attempts?
So the way the enforcement would work, if somebody does put it in the trash, it's kind of just an educational at that time, and we would educate them that this needs to be going into recycling now. And we do have to be performing more oversight on that as well, and I'm sure DEP is going to start doing enforcement pretty soon on it. So it's kind of tricky with the bags and everything to find out if people are doing it, but we'll just have to kind of work it as we go. And
It's brand new.
Yeah.
2 weeks
Yeah,
in.
Right.
Scott, any question?
No questions. Thank you for pulling this together, Dan. Appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome. All right. That's it. Thanks.
Thanks, Dan.
All right. Thank you.
Great. Our next item is the town manager's report.
Mr. Chair,
Good evening,
Selectman
Robert.
Hood, good evening. You have in the packet the warrants that have been reviewed and approved since the board last met on November 1st. Just a couple of things under the administrative update. As Selectman Hood mentioned, the budget process is well underway, and on the capital front, all of the capital requests IT has informed me are on the capital webpage. So you can see all of the department requests, and the committee will be meeting, as Selectman Hood mentioned, this Thursday to start that process. We're also at the BI board discussed the budget directive will be going out to all departments for the preparation of the FY24 budget on December 1st per the calendar, with budgets being due back at the end of December, at least the initial requests. I also just want to point out last Monday, November 7th, we had the Depot Square ribbon cutting event. We had spectacular weather. The event was very well attended. Special thanks to Miss Antonellis for all her efforts, not only with that event on Monday, but with that project that completed the entire phase of that project. So that was a very positive event last Monday, November 7th. Special thanks to the town clerk and her election workers and her team for another successful election that took place last Tuesday, November 8th. With the passage of the CPC funding for the howitzer restoration, you may see the dig safe has been done. There's markings around the howitzer as we speak, and it is scheduled. It will be coming off site to go to restoration, I think
This week.
this week. There will be a crane coming. It will be removed and gone to restoration. And I know that Mr. Schultz from the facilities department, they will start working on the base and so forth. So you'll see that project begin to move forward. Obviously, the most time-consuming piece will be the restoration. And in speaking with Alan, we're looking to have a Memorial Day rededication of the event. But we'll keep the board updated, and knowing Alan, I'm sure there'll be plenty of photos and video of this process, but we appreciate town meeting's support on that. Also, as I mentioned, it's coming up quick. Saturday, December 3rd will be the candlelight stroll. We hope many can join us at 5:15. It starts. Should be a great event. Residents should begin to see the Christmas lights going up very shortly and being turned on after Thanksgiving. So with that, in the interest of time, unless you gentlemen have any administrative questions, that's sort of just a brief snapshot as we enter the budget season, and I want to wish you both a happy Thanksgiving, which is hard to believe it's already next week. But if you have any questions, I don't have any action items this evening.
No questions.
No questions for me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any new business? We already
We
covered
got
it.
new business now?
In our 5 minutes.
I was just filling time.
And we already did a meeting minutes, so that brings us to our last item.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to adjourn at 7:14 PM.
I'll second that. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And we are adjourned.